Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman. And it is the greatest privilege of my career to serve as the advocate for the conqueror of the Undertaker's streak.
The Undertaker is now 21-1, the greatest streak ever that'll never be duplicated in the history of WrestleMania. The results altering the future of WWE.
And you had the temerity to doubt the strategy of the greatest manager in sports entertainment history, Paul Heyman.
Heyman, after last night, has got to be considered the greatest manager of all time.
I am the schmuck son of two extraordinary human beings. My mother was a Holocaust survived the Lodz Ghetto, Auschwitz, and Bergen-Belsen, and was the single most intense, driven individual I have ever met in my entire life. My father was the most ethical, honest, personal injury attorney in the history of the Bronx. And I would probably confess that I was the greatest disappointment of my mother's life, but my father could only admire his son's moxie and drive and hustle and wherewithal to pursue his dreams no matter how I achieved them. And it created the insane human being that sits before you today.
The first thing that comes to mind when I think of the name Paul Heyman is revolutionary.
Intense.
Uncensored.
Passion.
Integrity.
Colorful.
Creative. Teacher.
Confident.
Mentor.
Brilliant.
Mad scientist.
Evil mastermind.
Mastermind. A genius.
Wrestling genius.
Extreme genius.
Creative genius.
Evil genius.
Eccentric genius.
I mean, honestly, let's tell the truth. You hear all kinds of horror stories about Paul Heyman.
There's a lot of words that I could use to describe Paul. Paul will never make air.
Untrustworthy.
Aggressive.
It's too damn pushy.
Manipulative.
I guess laughter.
Car salesman.
A unique character.
Paul Giamatti in Private Parts.
The first thing I think of when I hear Paul Heyman's name is friend.
One of my absolute most favorite people.
Friend. Almost family.
A survivor.
He's genuine, he's a chameleon, and he's a friend.
And he is perfect at what he does.
I was flicking the dials one night, and there was a young announcer named Vince McMahon was interviewing superstar Billy Graham.
I wake up every morning, work out for 5 hours, run 19 miles a day, swim across the Atlantic Ocean, unbelievable condition. I am the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour.
And he just resonated through the television screen. I mean, he was just vibrant and alive, and I was mesmerized by him. And I said, man, that's what I want to do for a living. And I was a fan from that moment on. I never just wanted to be one of a crowd. It just wasn't what I wanted to be in life. I always wanted to be on the inside. I was always far more fascinated as to how it happened and why it happened and what it took to make it happen than the actual happening. I wanted to know the secrets of the magic, and I wanted to be able to find out how I could put that magic on. At probably a younger age than anybody else was going to do it, but that was also part of the challenge. I opened up a P.O. box and I took out an ad in Film Collectors Digest or Movie Collectors World, and I started selling movie posters through the mail. So at 11 years old, I opened up a movie collectibles mail order business. By the time I was 13, I had kind of a thriving business going on, and it got to be too much for me, and I really wasn't that passionate about it because I liked pro wrestling. And I took my bar mitzvah money and I bought, you know, what all nice young Jewish boys would do. I invested my bar mitzvah money in a business. Hello. And I bought a photo lab and I put it in my parents' basement. And I bought a really nice camera and a printing press. And I started taking photographs at the Westchester County Center in White Plains, New York. And I would publish the photographs in my own little newsletter, and I would sell the newsletter through the mail, which was great, but a fanzine's not gonna get you on the inside.
Paulie was a big fan, huge fan. And you could tell when he was 13 years old. I mean, you know, he would chase us down for a picture, and Paulie, he was there so much he became like one of the regulars in a day when we didn't let regulars hang around. You could see from the beginning, he would lie, cheat, and steal to get in the wrestling business.
There used to be a lot of free newspapers back then on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, like the Village Voice. And one of these newspapers had a gossip column about sports figures. And I read that Vincent James McMahon used to get his hair cut at the Warwick Hotel every Monday that they ran Madison Square Garden. And then after the show would close down Ben Benson's Steakhouse and take his inner circle to this steakhouse in New York City. So I found out the phone number for the Capital Wrestling Corporation, and being the publisher and editor of the Wrestling Times magazine, I called the Capital Wrestling Corporation and I asked for Vince McMahon because, of course, I had run into him at Ben Benson's Steakhouse where he promised me my press pass for Madison Square Garden. I was totally full of shit, and it was really my first hustle. I hop into a cab and I go down to Madison Square Garden and walk in with my press pass, and I find a photographer's room in the back and I lay low until it's showtime. And I, at 14 years old, had BS'd my way into the locker room of Madison Square Garden. I'm behind the scenes. I'm in.
I am here to tell you that Paul Heyman was a royal pain in the ass. Okay, I was the senior editor of several wrestling magazines, and I used to go down to Madison Square Garden and a lot of the other clubs regularly to shoot photos on the ring. And there were probably 4 or 5 of us. And the one person that we all dreaded being around the ring was this little punky, long-haired kid by the name of Paul Heyman. We would be all set up. The wrestlers would be in there, they'd be battling, and somebody would be in an arm lock and say, oh my God, what a great picture for the cover. And I'd get set to shoot it, and bam, an elbow right in the side. Who was it? Paul Heyman. I cannot tell you how many covers that guy cost me. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but it wasn't important who he rubbed the wrong way as long as he rubbed the right people the right way. But there were 3 people who took a liking to him. They were very sarcastic to him, but they took a liking to him. And that was Captain Lou Albano, Fred Blassie, and the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. He spent so much time learning from these 3. He traveled everywhere with them. The Grand Wizard of Wrestling, I'd be in a car with him and we'd be talking about the business, and he'd say, that little pain in the butt, Paul Heyman, one day is gonna be something.
So now I'm traveling to different cities, taking photographs of all the matches, and I'm getting to know people in the industry. And the head of creative for Jim Crockett Promotions is Dusty Rhodes. I flew to the Carolinas to cover a NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions television taping. And I got there early, and a couple of the guys that I already knew gave me a ride to the arena, and there was a big sign that says production meeting 2 o'clock. So I have my baseball hand, I pull it down over my eyes, and I sneak into this production meeting, and I sit back row all the way to the right. And I just wanted to learn Dusty's way of writing and producing television, because the only people that I had been around were the McMahons. And in walks Dusty Rhodes to run this production meeting.
I was in charge during that period of time, and we would have these production meetings, and I noticed the back of the room, production meetings, unannounced. 1 week he was sitting back there.
And Dusty gets up, and he's walking across the room, and as he gets to the back row, he looks over and goes, "Psst." So I go outside the room, and Dusty says, "You're the kid from New York." And I said, yes, Paul Heyman, nice to see you, Dusty. And he says, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm taking pictures for the magazines. I'm going to cover the television tapings tonight." He goes, No. This is a closed-door production meeting run by the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. What are you doing in the production meeting? And I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, "I'm learning from you." And it was that long moment of uncomfortable silence, and I'm thinking, oh man, they're gonna throw me out of here. They're gonna send me back to New York on a bus. I'm not gonna even make my flight tomorrow because I'm gonna have to leave now. Word's gonna get back to the McMahons. I'm never gonna be allowed to Madison Square Garden again. I'm done, I'm finished. I'm 17 years old. It was a nice run. And he says, "Well, you're learning from the right person, because I'm the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and I am a super genius. Now go back inside and keep on taking notes."
Next week's TBS taping, we had a production meeting, and I was going over the show, and I'd see him in the room, and he had moved up a little bit to a chair along the wall on the side, out of the way, and they were asking questions with yellow pencil and paper, taking notes. About the third week, he had moved up almost in my lap, and he went to school with a lot of different people. I just happened to be one. So that's what I mean from that movement up, being very aggressive of what he wanted to be and where he wanted to take his vision.
Pro Wrestling USA was running a 13-day tour in the New York, New Jersey area. And I was good friends with gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. There was a major charity event happening at the world's most famous nightclub, Studio 54 in New York City. And I called them up from the arena in New Jersey and said, "Hey, I have the star of a nationally televised professional wrestling show, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, with me. I'd like to bring him in the studio and take pictures of him at this charity event." And the publicist said, "That'd be wonderful, come on by." Now keep in mind the legal drinking age in New York is 21 at the time, and I'm 19 years old. So I bring Jimmy Garvin to Studio 54 in New York City, and I'm taking all these pictures of him, and it just so happens that on this particular night, the head photographer at Studio 54 got drunk off his tuchus and started throwing vodka bottles at the bartender, and they throw him out. And I look at the general manager and I say, "Wow, that's a very famous photographer. Now, what are you gonna do here?" And he says, "I don't know." I said, "Well, if you're looking for a head photographer, I'm your guy." He says, "Really? Can you do that?" "Of course I can." "Well, why can't I do it? Been doing it my whole life." And he said, "Great, you start tomorrow." So on the very next day, I was a photographer at Studio 54. So it's the summer of 1985, and the Palladium opens up on 14th Street in New York City. And this is going to be heavy competition for Studio 54. And most of the people behind the Palladium are former Studio 54 staffers. So they raid everybody from Studio 54. And the whole staff of Studio 54 is depleted, and everybody's jumped to the Palladium, kind of like the Monday Night War. So now there's a big void on Friday nights at Studio. They needed new promoters and new producers, and they're left in a lurch. So in August 1985, I walk in and I say, "Hey, I can produce and promote Friday nights." "You can?" "Sure. Why can't I? I've been doing it my whole life." And the first show I put together for Studio was Wrestle Party 85, the very first wrestling event I ever promoted. And I contacted Vince McMahon and I wanted to give an award to Hulk Hogan. But they were on the West Coast that Friday, so I called Jim Crockett Promotions. And they happened to be in Philadelphia. So Crockett arranged for a private plane to fly Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA to New York City after the event in Philadelphia, so I could give an award to Flair and at the very same time present the professional wrestling debut of Bam Bam Bigelow. That was the first event I ever promoted. The first event I ever promoted and the first wrestling event I ever promoted, all on the same night.
The event that Paul Heyman set up at Studio 54 was wild. It was perfect to be a Paul Heyman guy at that point. It really was, because if you knew Paul, you got in there, and all the people from Studio 54 there, all the celebrities, everybody was there to see this show.
In April 1986, there's this huge insurance crunch, and Studio 54 is one of the casualties. So Studio goes out of business. However, I'm running 3 national wrestling magazines, and I'm doing play-by-play for all these Northeast independents. And as I'm doing the play-by-play, it's the first time I'm really performing on air. And everybody starts nudging me, you know, you ought to do what Blassie and Albano and the Wizards used to do. And Bigelow is just on me and on me and on me about becoming a manager. And I just didn't envision myself doing that. And there was a movie out at the time called Johnny Dangerously, starring Michael Keaton. And back in my younger days, I kind of had a resemblance to Michael Keaton. And as a joke, I said, well, fine, I'll do it, but I'm gonna call myself Paul E. Dangerously. And Bigelow said, great, I think you should use that name. So I went down with him to the Monster Factory, which was Larry Sharp's wrestling school, where Bigelow trained. And there were 2 guys there that I had known from taking pictures of them. And we put them together and we called them the Motor City Madmen. We made them a tag team. And I started booking us out throughout the Northeast independents as a manager and a tag team. And I would publicize these independents in the wrestling magazines as a give back for booking us. So it made sense to use us because we came in with magazine publicity, and we caught the eye of Kevin Sullivan, who I had known before. And he had just taken over the creative reins in Florida. And I'm just a couple weeks into being a manager here. And Sullivan says, brother, would you like to bring one of your boys down to Florida and work with me? Of course, my answer was, of course I do.
You thought I was crazy when I said that I had a man coming in by the name of Tombstone that was bigger than Scott Hall. You all thought I was crazy. Well, my good friend Paulie Dangerously here has brought him to me. Brother, I'd like to see him now. I can't wait any longer.
He's here.
Bring him to me now. Bring him to me now.
Cleansing his soul.
Bring him to me.
I want him now. He's cleansing his soul.
Bring him to us.
You want him now?
To us now. I can't wait any longer.
Go for it, Tombstone.
Tombstone.
This is Tombstone. This is my Tombstone, Kevin.
Hey, this unbelievable.
Jim Crockett Promotions bought out Championship Wrestling from Florida. So here I am getting a huge break, and instantly I'm out of a job. So Bigelow is wrestling in Memphis. And he calls me up and says, hey, did Crockett just buy out Florida? I said, yeah, we're all out of a job. And he says, come to Memphis. You'll do great here.
We're talking to Paul Dangerously.
That's right, Paulie Dangerously, Lance Russell. Let me tell you something. When the big money men in New York bought the contract of the Giant Humongous, they knew that the only man who could properly look after their investment is Paulie Dangerously.
Of course, once I got to Memphis, I didn't fit in because here's a smart-ass New York Jewish kid coming down to Memphis, and I didn't get along with anybody down there first day.
He came along and he had a lot of charisma, and he was really good on the mic, good talker.
And you see, that is really the subject of today's speech, Lance, is that this place has really become nothing but a circus, man.
It was easy for people and the fans especially to dislike Paul Heyman. So we put him with our two top other guys that the fans didn't like, Austin Idol and Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Let me tell you something, Lawler. You had to live dangerously, didn't you? Huh? You had to come on and live dangerously with old Paulie and the Southern Heavyweight Champion, Austin Idol.
Idol and Rich versus Lawler was just the hottest thing in Memphis in years.
We had some great matches, epic battles in Memphis. Some of the most memorable matches that I was ever involved in was against Austin Idol, Tommy Rich, and of course Paul Heyman. We had built up, and down in Memphis at the time, the culmination of a big feud would always wind up in a hair versus hair match.
Something that we never thought would be done. Lawler having never lost a hair match.
It was great national publicity. We shaved Jerry Lawler's head in the Mid-South Coliseum. It's one of those things they still talk about to this day. Memphis was a huge break for me.
See, Lawler, it was Austin and Tommy that made you only half a man.
Even early on, Paul Heyman thought he was the best. He thought he was God's gift to the wrestling industry.
Don't forget the mastermind himself, who had Austin Idol and Tommy Rich take your other partner, Jerry Lawler's hair.
I just thought he was wrong. I didn't like him, and I didn't want to use him for a long, extended period of time. So we did wind up parting ways there. But I still knew at the time that I knew he had a big future in front of him.
I'm gonna do here in the AWA what no man has ever done. Cause if excitement had a name, it must be Paul E. Dangerously.
He's a man of a few thousand well-chosen words.
And I, Paul E. Dangerously, I'm gonna show you what professional wrestling is all about.
Dangerously always carries a telephone with him. He is indeed one of the busiest managers.
I was looking for a trademark. And cell phones were big, you know, it was Gordon Gekko and Wall Street and with the big cell phone. I was like, wow, man. The first time I saw Wall Street, I said, man, imagine hitting somebody over the head with that. There it is.
When I'm in the shower, I have this with me. When I'm in bed, I have this with me. And when I'm out at the ring most of the time, I'm gonna have this with me because I'm always keeping in touch. I'm always listening, I'm always negotiating, I'm always trying to get contracts for my men.
The AWA was on ESPN daily. Every weekday at 4 o'clock, the AWA would come on ESPN. And they would show the same episodes over and over again with new interviews. So I would tape these interviews all day long in Minneapolis. And here I am, 21 years old, and I'm just exploding with ideas. So I'll do that interview. I'll do the interview at the end of the show, too. So I'm doing 2 interviews per show that's airing daily on ESPN. I'm all over the TV show. So it was a magnificent opportunity for me.
Nobody cares about anything but Paul E. Dangerously, the greatest professional wrestling manager in the world today. What a mouth!
I left the AWA. I ended up working in some Southern independents and then was Eddie Gilbert's right-hand man in terms of running creative in Alabama. But at the same time, I started running the creative for an independent in Chicago called Windy City Wrestling. So I kept very, very busy away from the national spotlight and kept my name out there, but also, more importantly, I started building my reputation behind the scenes. Eddie Gilbert and I are leaving Alabama. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson leave Jim Crockett Promotions in the middle of its sale to Ted Turner, and they jump to WWE. So Dusty Rhodes needs another tag team to work with the Midnight Express, and I was managing the original Midnight Express over in the AWA. Jim Cornette had a tennis racket, I had the telephone. Dennis Condrey used to be part of Cornette's tag team, now he's part of mine. It's a natural rivalry. They're looking for new things on their television show. So Paulie Dangerously and the original Midnight Express jumped Jim Cornette and his Midnight Express on Superstation TBS.
And they have literally burst on the scene here at the Superstation, and it is nothing but carnage in the ring.
It gave him a good opportunity because he was instantly put on that level. The Cornette and them, they were guys that were, at that time, hot guys. So Paulie, was brought to a top level and he really showed the world he could do it.
Jim Cornette, you're a stinking sequel. You're nothing but a stinking copycat. And now that we're here, we're taking this place over. The highest rated tag team in the history of professional wrestling, Paul E. Dangerously. That's right, the Yuppie Gone Bad with Loverboy Dennis and Ravishing Randy. That's why your ratings are up. That's why this is now in prime time. So I tell you what, if you want me to prove to you that 1989 is gonna be the year of living dangerously, I'm gonna prove it to you.
It was always a volatile time in WCW because it was constantly changing over there. I was with the original Midnight Express, then one day, boom, they were gone. Now I'm working with the Samoan SWAT team, then I get fired by Ric Flair.
When I ran across him, he was a beginning, fledgling, young manager who had a great gift of gab, could anger the Pope if given the opportunity, and somehow we meshed. And I was able, in a position, to take him off the hands of the creative team in WCW and make him my guy, my partner.
I learned about performing from Lou Albano and Freddie Blassie and the Grand Wizard and Austin Idol and Dennis Condrey and some of the greatest teachers this industry has ever known. But I learned more about the performance while sitting next to Jim Ross than from anybody else before him. It was an amazing education. I learned how to be a far better manager by being a color commentator with JR.
But first, here's some more about Wrestle War 91.
It was like having a very bright, troublesome student in the classroom. I had to get on to him, but I knew that he was a real brilliant prodigy.
Well, you need to apologize to me, because I want to know who won the match.
Well, I do too, stupid. You think I'm just sitting here
Stupid?
like an idiot? Yeah.
Are you calling
Fans,
me
we don't know.
stupid?
Yeah, you're stupid.
Go ahead. Say it again.
We don't know who
Say it again.
I had a lot of fun working with him down there because he challenged me as a talent. He challenged the creative process because at that time he could point out fallacies in booking, fallacies in creative. He could find the holes in the creative because he just had a real good knack for that. His issues were not the fact that he was wrong a lot. His issues were the fact that he had abrasive and I want to slap you presentation skills. That was his problem with the Good Old Boy Network and at TBS.
So I had been suspended from my job as JR's color commentator, and WCW was content to letting me ride out my contract and just pay me to sit at home. But the company had just signed Ravishing Rick Rude, and the live events were dying a slow death. So Jim Crockett came up with the concept of Rick Rude being the centerpiece of a newer version of the Four Horsemen. Rude, Arn, Bobby, and Zbyszko, with Medusa playing Baby Doll and me playing JJ. I knew there was one more person for this group.
With the world's greatest athlete.
So I pitched to Dusty the addition of one more piece of talent, Steve Austin. Because then we had a star for tomorrow in the group. I could work with Steve on his promos, and Steve could ride with me and Rick Rude and learn about being a main event superstar from Rick Rude.
He's really on a roll right now. Obviously the most powerful manager in this sport.
I don't think I would have ever had the opportunities in ECW that I did if it wasn't for the reputation that I got to build in the brief time that we did the Dangerous Alliance. That was a star-making moment for me.
They got a lot of television time, and deservedly so. So Paul was on TV a lot, and not just a throwaway role, but in key roles. I think the Dangerous Alliance probably put him on the national map as a manager extraordinaire.
He has done an admirable job, to say the least, in putting together quite a organization known as the Dangerous Alliance.
All of a sudden, I'm on the cover of magazines. All of a sudden, I'm on these pay-per-view posters. All of a sudden, I'm on the video box covers.
It's not a lineup, it's not an army, it's not a stable, and it's not a family. It's an alliance of businessmen who will bring WCW down to its knees. You want to live dangerously with a psycho yuppie from Wall Street? I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bankrupt this whole damn company!
He was hard to deal with in the early days because he was very defiant, very headstrong, and had such a high IQ and intellect for the product that he just knew that he was right.
One of the most controversial figures ever in WCW.
You know, say what you want to about Paul Lee, and many people have in World Championship Wrestling. You cannot deny that this man is maybe the most successful manager the sport has ever seen.
So why did you leave WCW?
Because I got fired. we can't really, I just want to tell you, there's, just so you know, and I know it's 21 years later, but there was a lawsuit over it, and I sued them, and I got a lot of money out of them, and there's a hush clause on both sides. So there's going to be a lot of stories. I mean, Ross can tell you the story, but we'll end up being sued if we air it. So
I think being the son of a highly successful personal injury attorney rubbed off on him. I think he had it in his genes to be a little bit argumentative, prone to debate. So anyway, he ran afoul of management in WCW, and he was dismissed.
they hated me, I hated them back. A perfect recipe for us to say goodbye. I was so emotionally spent after WCW, I was burned out. I wanted out, which is so funny to say now, but I was 27 years old and I had enough. I was done, I was finished, gone. So I was signed by the William Morris Agency in New York, and I was gonna go head to head with Howard Stern in the mornings on radio, and I was bound and determined to take on Howard Stern. Jim Crockett's non-compete with WCW was expiring, and Crockett was looking at getting back into the game and taking on Vince McMahon. Crockett offered me a chance to be his partner and the head of creative. And at first I said no. So one day, Jim Crockett cuts this scathing promo on me. And he says, wow, after all this time, you're just like everybody else. You bitch and you moan and you complain about why are they doing things this way and why don't they do things that way? But at the end of the day, all you're doing is bitching, moaning, and complaining. You're not doing anything to change the system, because you can't change the system from the outside bitching. You can only change the system from the inside, implementing a new vision. So you got a new vision, or are you just bitching? So in other words, Jim Crockett pulled my punk card. At the very same time, Eddie Gilbert had moved to Philadelphia, and he started running the creative for a small promotion that got a TV clearance called Eastern Championship Wrestling, ECW. And Eddie asked me to come to their events and teach the young guys how to do promos. And I love developing new talent and getting to work with the stars of tomorrow. So of course I did it.
And Paul came in and was just sort of off to the side, and he would take guys in the back one by one, help him a little bit with the interviews and do a little on-camera managing. I think he was really just kind of staying off to the sidelines when he first came to Eastern Championship Wrestling, because he saw it was Eddie's gig, and Eddie was his friend. And I thought Paul was gonna be there for one show, maybe two. But as time went on, slowly but surely, the Crockett Project was not really getting off the ground. Long story short, Eddie had his demons, and his demons cost him his job with me. I actually gave Paul the book.
I was so ready to do something new and different and innovative, because at the time, both WWE and WCW were really behind the times.
From the outer reaches of your mind, Damian DeVito!
The music, the characters.
He calls himself Heavy Metal Van Hammer.
There was nothing new and different and cutting edge and vibrant in terms of the presentation or the characters and the personas. What ECW did better than anybody else was that we made stars.
We got to make some stars. You know, we can't just keep paying these ex-WWE workers and ex-WCW workers to come in here and elevate us because, you know, A, it's too cost prohibitive, and B, half of them didn't want to do a job. And it was, you know, they were a pain in the ass to work with, to be quite honest with you. He said, we got to make our own homegrown stars. People appreciate this opportunity. And we picked the right veterans to come in, most importantly, Terry Funk, who basically made half of our company. Paul had studied a tape from Japan, Mexico, wherever it was, and say, this guy's got it, this guy doesn't, this guy's got it, next tape. And he was that kind of fast. He could identify strengths and weaknesses so quickly.
No words can express the amount of influence that Paul has had on the talent. You look at a guy like Tommy Dreamer, who was wearing suspenders and a pretty boy, and he transformed him. Taz, who was a Tasmaniac, who wore fur and was some sort of animal or something, and Paul completely transformed him.
He was brilliant about, you know, accentuating the positives and hiding the weaknesses.
And discovering maybe like some hidden potential that nobody else might even know is there.
He took talent that failed in other places and he made them into stars.
And he was right. He was very, very good at talent evaluation. Excellent.
It was immediately clear when ECW started and he really got full reins and full control that Paul was going to do something different. Something that wrestling hadn't seen before.
I came in and said, boom, everything changes from this moment on.
I'm mad as hell about these freaking whores who have pimped and raped and prostituted the sport of professional wrestling right down into the ground, right down into the gutter, right down into the circus with all the clowns. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
We were like the anti-establishment. That's what we were. We gave something I'd never seen before, and it caught on, so we went for that R-rated attack. We wanted to be R-rated.
Oh, Tommy, don't do it! Oh, my God! Sabu now thrown into the barbed wire.
No way, that balcony is way too high up in the air! Oh, my God! Oh, my God! In stereo!
We were believable. At the time, everybody else was doing cartoon wrestling. WWE, in all fairness, was doing cartoon wrestling at the time. And they were, because they were matching their cartoons on Saturday mornings, which was their audience. You had to understand that. But that's more what it was. It was a cartoon.
This ain't no freaking circus! This is ECW!
We gave them hardcore wrestling. We made them believe again.
Just a reminder, you're watching ECW, as if you'd see this type of wrestling anywhere else.
Get somebody with a chair. No one was using chairs anymore. We put someone through a table. No one was putting people through tables. We brought in fire. We brought in things, elements that there was no question it was real.
You want wholesome family entertainment? You're watching the wrong promotion. This is hardcore. This is as extreme as it gets.
We were working our asses off and doing things to our bodies for the benefit of the show and the benefit of the audience.
We got a lot of attention because we just did everything different. I was 28 years old and I'm from the television generation. So I grew up watching twisted camera angles on Batman. We put hip-hop music on our television show, and people in this industry had never heard of hip-hop. They looked at me like I was crazy. A new era was emerging. Yo, we're the future. Hey, we're the cool ones. We're innovative. We're new. We're different. We're extreme.
Here's what I have to say. This Saturday night, professional wrestling fans all over the world, the hell with you. This comes down to me. I don't like what wrestling's all about anymore. I don't like what the sport has become. I don't like the shape that wrestling is in.
ECW was so different because the boys weren't jaded yet. They weren't cynical. They hadn't been anywhere. Nobody had been anywhere except me. And so Paulie could mold them, and they believed what he had to say. And, you know, and sometimes he's got to con you, and sometimes he's got to, you know, manipulate you into doing what needs to be done for the show. Because everybody wants to win every time, and not everybody can be on top, but everybody wants to be, and everybody thinks they should be. So, you know, Paulie, you know, had to do what he had to do to get people to do what needed to be done for the good of the show. He would lie to you if he had to, and he was known for, you know, for lying, except he would never lie to the audience.
Paul was a god to the ECW audience. He could do no wrong to them because he brought them into the show. He made them feel like that they were actually running the show.
Paul is God! Paul is God! Paul is God! Paul is God!
He made them feel like they were a part of the show, and they were a part of the show. And now is one of the reasons why ECW had such a strong connection to the fan base, and still does to this day, however, over a decade later.
This is the ECW arena!
You didn't even have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy ECW because it was cool, and that's what Paul wanted. He wanted wrestling to be able to be cool again.
That's how we do it in Extreme Championship Wrestling. This ain't Monday Nitro.
Paul united us together as a team, and we had a team mentality, and we had an us versus them mentality. Us being ECW and the little guys against the corporate machine of WCW and WWE. Paul painted them as the enemies.
Do you want to see a WWF show? Do you want to see those jackoffs in WCW? Or are you here tonight to see ECW?
There was no greater supporter of ECW than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. The more shots I took at Vince, the more he loved it. And I'm coming in from absolutely nothing and taking on the world, which is the position in some ways Vince put himself in outside of the comfort zone of the New York territory that he bought from his father. And I think Vince thought we were good for the industry, if for nothing else but because we were a shop that could create new talent.
I knew that Paul was working, you know, with the WWE, because every once in a while, Vince would actually call the studio.
Paul Heyman would call the house sometimes. And I know that my dad would go in his office and they'd have very long conversations, but I never really knew what they were about.
Vince and Paul had a great relationship, and we were helping them because we looked at it as, well, maybe at some point in time, we'll be able to get access to some of these stars. And certainly not to go in and rob ECW of all their talent, but here and there, pick out somebody that can come help us.
In many ways, the greatest competitor we ever had was also one of our greatest allies.
This may turn out to be the blackest day in the history of the World Wrestling Federation. The idiots from ECW are here live tonight.
Man, has this show sucked without ECW or what, huh?
The accusation always was that I was on the WWE payroll while I was running ECW. And it's not true. I never took a check from WWE while I was running ECW, not once. There's not one canceled check that you're gonna find, not one cash payoff. There's nothing that can be produced, and not that it's untraceable. I was never paid by WWE while I was running ECW. In 1996, I had a meeting with Vince McMahon And there was some talent in WWE that he was going to send to ECW and keep on his payroll as long as I could work with these talents and develop them. Brackus, Al Snow, Droz. I think there were a few others. I can't think of them offhand. There was some talent in ECW that Vince was looking to bring into WWE. Terry Gordy, Furnace and LaFon, Too Cold Scorpio, who became known as Flash Funk. ECW had a deal with Tommy Boy Records to use some of Tommy Boy Records' music. And every time Too Cold Scorpio was on the ECW TV show, we put a lower third of his music. And usually we would cut to break because the first commercial was always an ad by Tommy Boy Records. And for this, Tommy Boy Records sponsored ECW to the tune of $1,000 per week. If I were to send Too Cold Scorpio to WWE, ECW would lose the sponsorship deal with Tommy Boy Records. We'd lose $1,000 a week that we were being given as a sponsorship from the record company. I said to Vince, I have no problem with Terry Gordy, no problem with Furnace and LaFon, but I have a conflict in giving up Too Cold Scorpio because he's sponsored to be on our show to the tune of $1,000 a week. Vince says, I'll cover the $1,000. I'll send you $1,000 a week for the rights to use Too Cold Scorpio. I said to Vince, don't pay me the $1,000, pay it to the company. And if you look, since that day in September 1996, WWE paid ECW $1,000 a week in the name of our parent company, HHG Corp. Paul Heyman was never paid. Paul Heyman didn't inure the benefit of that $1,000 a week. I didn't take the $1,000 and put it in my pocket. I didn't pay myself in ECW. That $1,000 a week from WWE went into ECW, the parent company HHG's bank account. And ECW used that money to its benefit, to pay talent, pay production, rent a building, buy an ad campaign, whatever it may be. I didn't get paid by WWE when I was the head of ECW. ECW got $1,000 a week to cover the sponsorship that we gave up when we had Too Cold Scorpio go to WWE. There's no contracts here for one reason. If you want to stay, you stay. If you want to stay, then be here. Then be here and work your ass off and give the people their money's worth and do what needs to get done. And don't worry about who's up or who's down. And just go out there and do your thing. If you don't want to be here, go.
You believed in him, and you believed in his ability to make ECW grow, and that if you were loyal to him, and he was very big on loyalty, it was a two-way street with him, if you were loyal to him, you would be there along with the ride as it grew.
If you're miserable in my dressing room, you're going to ruin my dressing room. You're going to upset my dressing room. You're going to take away from what we do. And the thing about us is that we have that cooperation with everybody to such an extent that we're a team.
You never felt you were working for Paul. You felt that you were working with Paul. So many of the great storylines that you saw in ECW had heavy influence from the talents themselves. Anyone could feel free at any point to go give Paul an idea for a storyline. So everyone felt like they were working with Paul, not for Paul. And that made everyone feel like they had a personal stake in the company. And that motivated everyone in ECW.
His passion was contagious. It was something that we all felt from him, and we all shared that same passion with him.
Paul's presence in the ECW locker room he was the god. He was the man.
Paul was in charge of writing the shows. We would, bounce back and forth, throughout the course of the week, leading up to each show. And Paul would walk into the building and be about, 45 minutes to an hour before the show. Everybody else, myself included, had probably been there for like 4 hours at that point. He'd walk in, put his briefcase down. All right. He'd look around and say, so who's here tonight? And he'd pull out, finish his sandwiches, take a napkin out of the bag, And we got a pen. And we take the pen. It's a true story. Take the pen to the napkin and go. I go to Stevie Richards, who's back there, and he start matchmaking on a pen and a napkin. Watching him do that was amazing to me. I've been doing plenty of booking on my own before him and then sitting with him. And I'd set it down like 3 weeks in advance, which I no, because put this third and this second, because that'll take some of the heat away from the. And he'd walk in there with a napkin and a pen and put together an incredible show. And he'd sit there and he'd go, all right, pit bulls. Public court. All right, here we go. And he'd start, and that's when you see the mad scientist just out of nowhere. You go, then you come in, and he has answer, and it was like watching performance art. And you go, all right, you got it? And these guys were going, hur, hur. I mean, they're ready to like run through a brick wall just from him telling them what the angle, what the match was going to be.
He's able to read people unlike anybody I've ever met, and I think that's probably his greatest gift. He's really able to talk to somebody for the first time and maybe have a 15, 20, 30-minute conversation, and he really can tell what drives the person at that point, what motivates them in life. He sees things on a different level than other people.
He would give a speech before every show, before every show in Philadelphia at the ECW Arena. It was called a State of the Union address, is what it got nicknamed. But I remember the first time he gave it, and none of the guys were cynical, none of the guys were jaded, because they hadn't been anywhere, and I'd been everywhere, and so he starts talking and, you know, rah-rah to the team, you know, and I'm just like, ugh, you know, why are they buying this? You know, I'm rolling my eyes in the back, you know, and then all of a sudden, I'm listening and listening, and I'm starting to get goosebumps, and I'm starting to be like, yeah, let's go put our head through a wall, yeah, let's kill ourselves.
Tonight we have a chance to say, yeah, you're right. We're too extreme, we're too wild, we're too out of control, we're too full of our own Or we have a chance to say, hey, you, you're wrong. You, we're right.
Paul was an excellent motivator. You can't teach that. And I'm not sure he got that from anyone that he met along his way. I think that's got to be an innate ability. And he found a way to motivate a dressing room full of dreamers and outcasts. He found a way to make them feel like they were part of something special and bring out the best in almost everybody that he crossed paths with.
And you could not help but be enthused because he was a master of getting you enthused. And if you didn't like it, you were gonna get away until he explained to you why you were gonna like it, and you were gonna say, okay, I like it. Just let me go already. Like, no, listen to me, tell me why you like it. I said I like it, Paul, right? No, tell me why you like it. I wanna know why you like it. What do you like about it? You know, he wouldn't let go until they said, oh, you know what? I do like it. It was an amazing way to bring the best out of people. That was a real strength.
Up until that moment, it was the greatest time in my life. I mean, creatively, it was 24/7, 365 stimulation. It was exhilarating. I'm the man that replaced you, because I'm the big effing deal. Rhino. And when you say Rhino, I want you to take the belt and stick it, you know what I'm saying? Because now I want them to associate the name Rhino with the title, so that to them, you're one and the same. It's real subliminal, but it's one and the same. I'm Rhino. Oh, that belt means Rhino. Rhino means the belt means Rhino.
Paul would do it again. You can get more, come on. And he would get great promos out of you.
Baby.
Good, come on, more, come on. Now you get it, come on, roll. Come on, get
Yo,
pissed.
Hack.
More, get pissed. Come on. And hold the mic up, come on, get pissed. Come on,
Hack.
Yeah, come on, more.
Yo, Hack.
More.
Yo, Hack.
More.
Yo, Hack.
More.
Sorry about
more.
the
No,
ribs,
come on,
brother.
more. Come on.
Yo,
more.
Hack.
Come on.
Yo, Hack.
Yo, Hack.
Yo, Hack.
Come on, move that arm. Yo, Hack, come on.
Yo, Hack.
Come on, more.
Sorry about
no,
the ribs,
again.
brother.
Come on, Val, come on.
Yo, Hack.
There you go, now, do it again.
Yo, Hack. Sorry about the ribs, brother.
I'd watch guys take hours and hours and hours to get a 30-second clip. I'm like, this is ridiculous, Paulie. Just call it a night. He's like, no. He'll hit a home run, he'll get a 2-minute one, or at the very least, we'll find 30 seconds of a gem, but it's worth waiting it out, and that's who he was.
The first time I've ever seen you really believe in yourself, really believe in your words, that was big league. That was great. Thank you. It was something to be passionate about 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I lived it in my sleep.
Looking back at it, Paul gave everyone, if he saw something, he gave them opportunity, and he really, he held everybody's hand along the way. He did that for me. He did that for a lot of guys.
Is this the minds behind ECW's creative genius?
You know, me being 23 years old, and the ECW studio was in Pelham, and Paul's like, hey, you want to come hang out at the studio? I'll teach you how to edit. Hey, you want to do this? I'll teach you how to book. Back then, that was unheard of in wrestling. You know, you were a wrestler, boom, that's it. You were not in the office. You were not taught how to edit. You were one-dimensional. And
1 minute.
Paul brought me in, and I would sit there and just listen to him and see why he did things, and he'd explain things. He was an amazing mentor, an amazing teacher. Being in the studio with him was as rewarding sometimes as wrestling, because again, you'd see this creative mind and it come to life.
Paul is so in tune to what was going on with the edits that he could be snoring on the couch.
And he would have his hat down and he'd be like this.
And this is not believable, so everyone's out there is gonna say, oh, this is total bull. And but it's the truth. He's half asleep on the couch. We're laying down the match, we're watching it, we're mixing in some, audio and stuff like that.
And I'll never forget it.
And all of a sudden, someone stumbles.
And Paul was dead asleep and went, change that.
And he goes, all right, bring that back a few frames. We got to take that stumble out. And I'm looking back, I'm like.
And we were like, what? And
he's asleep. How's that possible?
And in his sleep, he changed an edit. And we just started laughing. Then he wakes up because we're laughing so much. And he's like, you're crazy. You heard that? And he's like, yeah. He goes, and he's stammering like that. And we go, you're asleep. He goes, but I still heard it. And I still know I don't want it on my show. And we're like, okay, you crazy person.
In ECW, my imagination ran free because I could do anything I wanted to do. Who could stop me?
ECW was sued constantly.
He crossed the line, We all crossed it. There was a certain incident that resulted in Paul and Terry Funk and I spending 6 days in a courtroom in Philadelphia. We were exonerated, thank goodness, for something that crossed the line.
I grew up rather litigious because I was the son of a personal injury attorney. I watched my father in court. I watched my father in action. And I kind of knew how to fight the system that way. And I had great legal advice when I needed it. But it's not like my father defended ECW or bailed ECW out when we had criminal charges pressed against us. It wasn't what my father did. I would never have made it through those 7 years in ECW. I never would have had the gall or the gumption or the moxie or the chutzpah or the audacity to have the drive and ambition and pull off the things that I did if it wasn't for the fiercely intense drive that my mother had in life, which was all based on being a Holocaust survivor.
Paul would do things that he felt was right, and he would die for that. And I have respect for that. He did push the envelope a few times with some, very, very controversial things we did in ECW.
This is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
The crucifixion may have crossed the line. It sent Kurt Angle packing, leaving ECW. But yeah, sure, there were a lot of things that crossed the line. But you don't know what the line is until you cross it. And Paul was not afraid to test those boundaries.
ECW expanded so fast, and expansion costs a lot of money, and it tapped out Todd's budget. Todd just couldn't afford to keep on growing. But we were growing so fast, the demand for this product was so huge. I had enough of a settlement from WCW, and I was doing well enough in the stock market to support the company for a while, but to expand it the way that it needed to be expanded, to really take a shot to really go for it all, no, I needed investors, and my parents were the investors.
I want to say the best way to describe ECW was we were a mom and pop deli that became Subway. And we lacked an infrastructure. I could do so much. You know, our office really was myself, Taz, Bubba Ray Dudley, you know, Mikey Whipwreck. They helped run the wrestling school. I ran the office with Devon Dudley and Guido, and we were, you know, mailing out the T-shirts. Taz was designing the T-shirts. Taz leaves to go to WWE. I'm now stuck with designing the T-shirts.
His mom was even running merchandise for us at the time, up until he fired his mom. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Paul, for saying this, but yeah, I think there was a problem with the merchandise. It wasn't running as smoothly as possible, so Paul called up his mom and fired her. And she said, "You can't fire me." He goes, "I just fired you."
That was the micromanaging part of Paul, where we could not finally pull the plug if we had something to do. Like Bubba, he was the promoter on a lot of shows. Like, "Hey, Paul, I need a check." "Okay, come get the check." "Oh, can you mail it to me?" He doesn't go and mail the check, and then the next day, Bubba would be like, "Hey, did you put the check out in the mail?" "No, come and get it," because he just wanted to hang out with Bubba, you know? And he's like, "Then why did you tell me you put it in the mail?" That's just Paul. I can't say Paul being Paul because it affected the lives of everybody. It's just, we did need help, but I don't think he would have acknowledged it. When you're doing this, it's a 24/7 job, and Paul would do it 24/7. I mean, I'd get phone calls 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and you know, he'd be wide awake.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm wide awake. Let's start editing right now. It was a startup company whose entire presentation was counterculture. So you're not going to get mainstream advertisers. You're not going to get big name sponsorships. We didn't have tens of millions of dollars. We didn't have big investors. We didn't have a huge line of credit. We had no credit at all. We lived hand to mouth for all that time. It was expensive to expand. It cost money to go on television stations. But you can't go to Florida without television. You can't get into New York without television. And there was great demand for the product in these areas. So we had to expand, or we were just going to be in Philadelphia our whole lives. And that was never the goal. And I told Todd this was my vision before he ever gave me the reins of the company.
I handle all the business part. I handle the MSG negotiation, the Sunshine Network in Florida, just the expansion of the TV period. Paul was supposedly handling the advertisers for that, a lot of that, some of which didn't exactly pan out the way he had kind of promised me it would. Don't worry about MSG. I've got 15 people. You want it won't cost us a dime. We'll make money on MSG. Didn't have one commercial. But you wanted to believe him so bad, you know, like, come on, all right, Paul, MSG, let's do it, man, and make money. Not a dime. Sunshine Network in Florida. Oh, we got people in Florida. Are you kidding me? My buddy showed, he'd buy the whole hour if you want him to. All right, sign the contract. Yeah, if something came up, his wife left him. Come on, man.
The reason ECW lasted as long as it did, because at the beginning, Todd Gordon was still the owner and had the purse strings. And Paul was very creative, but Todd had to spend the money to make anything happen. Towards the end of ECW, Paul had to bring in professional business people, financial people, to help manage the business of the company. But by then it was too late. We were just too far in debt. When Paul himself was in charge of creative and the business, we were in trouble. Because at all costs, Paul wants the best product. Paul has his vision, and he wants to make it happen.
Paul will tell you, the first one to tell you, I had to rein him in all the time. If it was up to him, he'd have helicopters coming, you know, landing on the building, and G.I. Joe troops parachuting out of the, you know. I said, Paul, can't afford helicopters, no access to the building from the roof. Okay, stop. You know, like, you had to, like, always, sometimes you really had to rein him in.
That's not somebody you can have in charge. And it's a credit to Paul's creativity because everything he wanted happened, but it bankrupted the company. So that is how the company ran for as long as it did. Paul's creativity brought in larger and larger crowds, And we did some decent pay-per-view buys, and we sold a great deal of merchandise for us, not compared to WWE, and it kept the company going as long as it could.
Those of us that were true followers of Paul fascinated the rest of the industry because Paul got us all to do so much for so little. And other wrestling promoters were amazed. I know that, you know, they were like, how do you get these guys to follow you, to keep wrestling when the checks are bouncing, to kill themselves out there in the ring every night, and to keep coming back, even though you're not paying them. And I know that people were amazed by that. They were amazed. But the bond that we had, because we all did that, and we all did it for the same reason, it's like an unbreakable bond that we still feel today, because we went through those times together, because we all are the true Paul Heyman guys.
Oh my God, Paul's the ultimate motivator. I mean, how else can you have a company that's literally at the verge of bankruptcy, checks bouncing, and everyone holding on? Because they believed in the man, they believed in the product, and they believed in the vision.
I would, you know, hey, Paul, I haven't been paid in a month. And he'd be like, oh, just take the merchandise money come, you know, Saturday. I'd be like, all right. He'd be like, how much money do we make? And I'd be like, $22,000. And he'd be like, okay, can I have some of it? I got to pay a few bills. And I'd be like, Paul, you owe me like, I used to have a running record of how much money he owed me. And I'd be like, Paul, you like owe me like 65 grand right now, you know, in back pay. He's like, okay, take 15 and I got to take the rest. I'd be like, dude, you said I could take all of it. He's like, but 15 minus 65 would be 50. It's an even number. All right, Paul, no problem. And I would do it, you know?
You could hate Paulie and want to kill him for whatever reason, and then 5 minutes later, after talking to him, you'd be like, he's the greatest guy in the world.
Sometimes we actually flew on bereavement fare, like we had to rotate for our airplane tickets. Sometimes we'd get, what is this? We have to call in to the girl Debbie that would help him out with the travel, and she would give us the name of our deceased family member, and we would have to tell them that because it was like a discounted fare, and we would have to go through that lie to the airlines, to US Air, in order to get like a cheaper flight just to get in there to work for the weekend. And it was, we'd always, it was rotated, so we'd always, you know, find out like who it was that had it this week, you know, and talk about it and laugh at it and stuff. But that's Paul, and that's the way he did business.
It's very popular to paint this picture of me as this business owner that told people anything to get to the next day. And some of that is true. That's fine. And I accept that criticism. And I played with the cards that I had in my hand. And sometimes when you have no cards, you gotta bluff that you have cards in your hand. I got the company to the next day. And sometimes that's not a pleasant task. And there are times when you're faced with the responsibility of keeping the company alive, that you have to do things that, in retrospect, you look back and people would say, wow, why'd you do that? Wow, that was unethical. Wow, ooh, man, you did that. Hey, you know, you lied to survive at 24 more hours. Yeah, but that 24 hours was another year.
And, you know, a lot of guys, you know, oh, he bounced checks on me. It was their prerogative to stay. It really was. Someone bounced a check on you, guess what? You could call the cops. It's illegal. Guys wrestled for free. Yeah, we all did. It was your choice. Yeah, he lied to you. Yeah, he wrote you some, you know, some bad checks, but you still came back.
I'm not just sitting back and cashing in these fat paychecks. I'm not living off of dividends. I'm not living high off the hog and not paying you. I'm not getting paid either. I'm eating through my savings. I'm investing my family's fortune. Everything that I have is on the line too. My balls get cut off long before yours do. I have more to lose than you do because you can leave, I can't.
I see some guys who are bitter. Why? It was a great time in your life, as well as you probably weren't going to be much without his help anyway.
Every single solitary day of ECW was a battle for survival. And every single solitary day that we survived was a miracle.
Paul was distant towards the end. Hard to get a hold of, not as in control anymore. Oh yeah, just put this, and this on the show, it'll be fine. And then they'll come by later on, look at it, and, you know, change it around a few minutes here or there, but that was pretty much it.
Paul was a disaster at the end of ECW. Towards the very end, Paul stopped coming to the events. Tommy Dreamer was running the creative end of ECW at the very end. Tommy Dreamer was the boss at the shows. Paul was just done. There was no more he could do to save the company. He was physically, emotionally, mentally burnt out. He gave everything he had to ECW. I have to give him credit for that. It was amazing. He was finished.
I don't know if this is buying into your own self-hype or not, but I just never envisioned that ECW was going to die. I was the son of a survivor. What couldn't I survive? And I just thought that ECW would always survive to the next day, and it had for 7 years. Our merchandise sales were never hotter. We were the first to get on DVD, and the DVDs were doing very well. Our video games were selling very, very well. Everything about ECW was hot. Our ticket sales, ECW grossed more revenue via live ticket sales in its final 6 months than in any other 6-month period of the company. ECW as a product was hot. We just couldn't get television. Barry Diller made the decision that if USA Network couldn't have the #1 brand, there was no wrestling to be had. Turner made the decision not to broadcast wrestling at all. Fox made us the offer to do an afternoon strip, which I knew was just not financially viable. The pay-per-view distributors would not give us our money unless we presented another pay-per-view, but I couldn't afford to put on the next pay-per-view unless the pay-per-view distributors gave us our money. This was not a no-win situation. This was a must-lose situation. We were too big to be small, too small to be big. We were done. It was over.
Paul's like, listen, I'm starting on Monday Night Raw tomorrow. I'm telling you before you hear it from somebody else. And I was devastated.
Our newest member to the World Wrestling Federation broadcast team, please welcome Paul Heyman.
I had an open offer to come to WWE. I had already discussed with Vince, if ECW didn't make it, what I would do in WWE. I don't think I signed a WWE contract until I was 2.5 months into the company. I was in the middle of preparing bankruptcy papers.
Now, here's what people don't understand. I've heard many of the wrestlers from ECW vilify Paul for showing up on WWE television before telling anybody that ECW was going to go bankrupt. Here's what people don't understand. When you file for bankruptcy, any check you have written 90 days prior to that bankruptcy, that money can be recalled by any secured creditors. So Paul waited 90 days after ceasing operations so nobody could come after the wrestlers for whatever money he had paid them. So people shouldn't vilify Paul for that. People should thank Paul for that. He couldn't say anything. That's why Paul was on WWE television before ECW officially filed for bankruptcy. And that's never been said before.
It was all happened very, very, very fast. But that's the nature of this industry, where there's chaos, as I said that first night on television, there's opportunity.
But where there's chaos, JR, there is opportunity. And tonight, just like TNN threw off ECW for the WWF, the king is gone, and in his chair is Paul E, and the E is for Extreme. How's that? Not bad, huh?
I don't know what I did to deserve this.
knowing when Paul came into the fold, I thought this is going to be a very interesting evolution, because the combustible elements of Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon are going to be very interesting to see how they evolve.
Vince working with Paul Heyman on commentary was very interesting, to say the least. Paul basically does everything Vince doesn't like on commentary. He yells too much, he doesn't let the story breathe, he talks too much.
He's challenging. He lights that fire, and I light his fire, and it's good because we are combustible elements. And I think that people truly believe that on the air that we hated each other. I mean, it was so intense sometimes.
I just needled JR. I needled JR. I took shots at JR.
Bye-bye, audience. Good old JR signing off after all this time.
You know, you're sick.
I'm not going to miss you at all.
Who gives a damn? You know, really. Who really
See,
cares
you're
about you?
replaceable. I'm not.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the
You
next
couldn't
time
replace
that
me.
we're on...
I made JR very I intentionally made JR very uncomfortable in the broadcast booth. Intentionally.
He would legitimately piss me off.
This one will not be pretty, and I don't expect it to last long.
It's not supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to be extreme. It's supposed to be raw. That's the name of the damn show.
The name of the show has nothing to do with extreme.
No,
You're
I didn't say the name.
You're beating a dead horse here, all right?
Let's not talk about my horse or yours. I didn't say the name of the show was extreme. I said the name of the show was raw. The adjective was extreme. You're welcome.
Paul loved being here, and he loved getting back out there and doing the commentary. He's just really, really talented. Excellent producer, and worked with a lot of talents, and became a very good communicator backstage.
Taz was a huge fan of Brock Lesnar's. And one day Taz pulls me aside and says, "You have to talk to this kid. He's being given the worst advice imaginable." So I got together with Brock and gave him some different advice than what he was receiving. And I asked Vince to watch Brock's match. And Vince loved it and said, "How do you guys get along?" And I really liked talking with Brock. I enjoyed the few minutes that we spent working with each other. And Vince said, "I'm putting you with him."
Look at who's at ringside with Brock. Oh, my God. What the hell is that vermin doing here? It looks like Heyman's already got his filthy hands all over Brock Lesnar.
When I first came to WWE, I needed somebody to pull me by the reins and point me in the right direction. And that guy was Paul Heyman.
He's even more impressive, or maybe I just should say more scary, with that agent, Paul Heyman in his corner, guiding every move.
Paul smartened me up to a lot of different things in the wrestling business. But the biggest thing was to believe in myself.
Brock was hungry for information, hungry for education. So Paul has been a real good asset for Brock. He's been a good mentor and a tutor.
You have all had the honor and the privilege of witnessing the extraordinary greatness of Paul Heyman.
He understands our business and our world in a way that most people can't fathom. We brought Paul in, and Paul actually worked for me as a writer. He was the head writer of SmackDown at one point.
It's a tough gig. SmackDown is the bitch of WWE. And I know this will never make air because what broadcaster's going to want? Look, I'm not paying my rights fees for that show. And look, the former lead writer called it the bitch. But it is the bitch. It's the B show. And which is why when I became the lead writer for SmackDown, my whole goal was to compete with Raw. We were told we were splitting the writing teams. And it was going to be Raw versus SmackDown and SmackDown versus Raw. And we're going to have one brand emerge as the A brand. And Vince was so, Vince McMahon is such a junkie for competition that when there was no more competition left out there, he created competition within. And it was going to be Raw versus SmackDown. And I became the lead writer for SmackDown. And to me, SmackDown wasn't going to be the B show anymore. SmackDown was going to be the A show, and Raw was going to be our bitch.
Vince loves competition. He thrives on it. He'd love to see everybody competing because competition raises everybody's game. But Paul just wasn't, he wasn't what you would call a model employee. Definitely, the element was highly competitive. We had unique rosters for both, unique writing teams for both.
Seeing, you know, what he'd done with ECW, I thought, wow, with the talent pool here, there could be some really, really amazing things that you could do.
The best thing about my tenure as the lead writer of SmackDown was the fact that we took superstars who were never perceived as main eventers before, and we thrust them into the main event spotlight without sacrificing the big box office of Brock Lesnar or The Undertaker or Hulk Hogan or anybody else who was on the show at the time.
It was always about finding undiscovered talent that a lot of people would overlook.
He can spot a star from a mile away. He's truly gifted that way.
I got really my first solo break was when Paul took over as writer for SmackDown.
One of the hottest young competitors in the World Wrestling Federation today.
He'd pull me aside and say, you know, this is your opportunity. You know what you can do. I know what you can do. And as soon as you feel like you got somebody on your side that is there and they get you and they get that you can do it, that's a huge boost of confidence.
What an ovation for Edge! And the people love Edge or what, Cole?
And I think what he also knows is what different people need. If it's one thing that I've learned from being on sets, it's that a director, which is essentially what the writer of a wrestling program is a director. And the director has to understand each actor and what their makeup is and what they need to pull out whatever performance it is that they need. Some need to be coddled, some need to be motivated, some need to be trash talked almost, and Paul just gets that.
I thought Paul did a hell of a job writing SmackDown. There was a big difference. He took ownership of that show. He was very competitive. He was hell-bent on making sure that that show was as good, if not better, than Monday Night Raw. I know at the time, Michael Cole and Taz were doing the broadcasts. And I heard from both of them on numerous occasions that Paul would sit in on the edits while they were doing the voiceover, and they were miserable because he was such a perfectionist that he would hang on every word. Some of these voiceover sessions, which should have lasted maybe 3 hours, might last 5 or 6 hours. He's got a vision for the show.
What Paul does, I think, is he's still such a fan of the industry that he stayed tapped into the vein of what the fan wants. And I can honestly say he's probably the only one left that does, because everybody else is wearing their padded blazers and has lost complete touch with what the fan wants.
It was Paul Heyman that revolutionized Thursday Night Network television. It was me who built Paul Heyman SmackDown into the crown jewel of World Wrestling Entertainment.
I'm proud of that accomplishment. Very proud. And with all due respect to what we all accomplished in ECW, it may have been my best tenure as a writer, because in ECW, I had free reign. I didn't have free reign on SmackDown. I had an entire company to answer to, and within those parameters, we beat Raw. Nitro wasn't the only television show to ever beat Raw. SmackDown beat Raw, and we beat them handily too. SmackDown beat Raw in terms of ratings, in terms of viewership. SmackDown's live events drew more than the Raw live events of that era. SmackDown was selling more merchandise than Raw was selling during that era. SmackDown was a better TV show than Raw was during that era. And there were a lot of people here that didn't like that.
I used to go to the production meetings years ago, and that was Paul gave me the advice. He says, you should go to the production meetings. You should go to the production meetings, know what's going on with the show, see how Vince thinks. If you can learn how he thinks, then you can give him what he wants. Okay, smart idea. But Vince and Paul would argue with Vince. Like, you know, dude, Arguing with Julius Caesar here, okay? I get it, make your point, but don't push him. Paulie would push and push and push, and Vince would get red, and the veins would come up on his neck with his shirt collar, and you just see him look at him like Vince was gonna come across the table and tear his throat out. And Paulie didn't know any better. He's like the simpleton in the zoo slapping a bear in the face, you know what I mean? Ah, this is fun, this is fun, this is fun. Dude, you're about to lose an arm, chill.
Vince McMahon is very fond of telling people, pick your hill to die on. And I've always been under the impression of, why die on any hill? But in the meantime, I'd fight a lot of battles that made no sense for me to fight.
In today's climate, especially now that we're corporate, you have to be careful how you push those points. You piss people off, and they see, you know, you're in the doghouse.
I demonstrated the fact that I wasn't truly corporately mature enough to handle the success of the show that creatively I could drive, but diplomatically, I was still a child.
The first writer I ever had to suspend without pay, which is not even a real thing. But I had to do it because Paul was just behaving like a petulant child, and he had to argue every idea he had. He wanted every single idea he had to be the one that we went with. And that's just not the way it goes unless you're the boss, you know? But Vince would always hear any idea out, and sometimes multiple times, but Paul had the ability to beat an idea into the ground to the point where no one wanted to do it, even if it was a great idea.
When I came to WWE, I signed a 5-year no-cut contract. I was the only one that ever got that. So they were stuck with me for 5 years. And Vince McMahon is not someone who is going to waste a resource or an asset, even if he hates you. Plus, Vince always felt it was better to have, and this is his line, it was better to have Paul Heyman in the castle pissing out than out of the castle pissing in. And so he kept me in the castle to piss all I wanted.
The idea was, okay, Paul, he's not effective, you know, on the writing team. He just can't sort of assimilate into this environment for whatever reason. But he has such great abilities to recognize star power, to develop and build stars. Let's give him a try in our developmental system. You know, maybe he can make a difference.
I was working in the WWE office. My boss was John Laurinaitis and Vince McMahon. There was big heat up here, and Paul was pretty much put out to pasture. Paul was out of their hair. Paul is the type of person that I feel will just keep doing this. Am I bothering you yet? Am I bothering you yet? Am I bothering you yet? Oh, I'm not bothering you yet? Okay, well, you let me know when I'm bothering you. Oh, okay, I won't touch you anymore.
A lot of people thought the fact that I was being sent to OVW was a demotion or a punishment for me. And to me, it was a great gift. I got to do what I love to do. I got to develop talent.
Paul was received in OVW by the talent with open arms.
When I signed with WWE in 2005, I was set to go down to Ohio Valley Wrestling, their developmental at the time. And then Paul Heyman got assigned to OVW, and things just, in my mind, seemed all that much brighter. You know, because even if I never made it out of OVW, I would be able to work with Paul Heyman. You know, I'd be able to learn a thing or two.
Paul worked with me quite a bit one-on-one when I was doing some promos. Paul taught me how to have confidence in my promos. And he was imparting important lessons by trying to get us ready for the cutthroat business, the real business where the real money is being made. And the developmental was awesome because we could all begin to cut our teeth. But I think Paul is very confident in his ability to choose talent that will be successful.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be talking about this, but Paul invited me one night to help him write the television show, which, I can't imagine anybody who's on the creative team would be thrilled to hear. But, he was receptive. He listened. He told me when my ideas sucked. He told me how to make them better. So I learned how to time out a show. I learned how to pace a show. I learned how to write a show, how to book a show. I learned everything from Paul Heyman.
I never saw anybody grasp the understanding of the layout and the formatting of a TV show as fast as Punk picked it up. And he was asking the best questions I'd ever been asked. I was learning from him before I was done teaching him.
Definitely was a grassroots kind of place to work, but it was great. The finished product was great, and Paul, I think, maybe got a little satisfaction seeing how far he took all of us during his time working there.
The OVW televisions that Paul wrote were very, very good. They really, really were. Business was doing well for OVW there, and a lot of guys were getting called up because of that.
But unfortunately, with Paul came his demons.
He was good at manipulation and coercion, and sometimes being accused of collusion. But he was very good at working with talent and explaining to them how this is really a good idea.
He just seemed to rub everyone he was in contact with the wrong way. He can do great things, but he's just his own worst enemy.
I think it doesn't matter, love or hate him. You can't argue with the guy's track record. That was always my opinion. I was like, well, he's created stars, and I've seen his face on TV a lot more than any of ours. So, you know, he's doing something right, and I'm gonna take something from him. And sure enough, he really changed the course of my career.
They're bringing back ECW One Night Stand 2005. Paul Heyman was, I want to say, hated by one Vince McMahon. Shane McMahon was a big proponent for bringing it back. And they sat me down and said, listen, we want it to be different, nothing like WWE product.
Oh my God!
And I was in all my glory.
It is the boss, Paul Heyman. The mad scientist has arrived. What an emotional night this has to be for Paul Lee. His vision, his life's work, his dream. It's been resurrected.
One more time for old time's sake. Right there so the whole world can see us. This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE. This, my friends, is ECW.
If we did ECW One Night Stand and left it at that, that would have been wonderful. Awesome. You know the storyline where Shane buys WCW? That almost actually happened in 2000 with Shane buying ECW for real. And Shane showing his chops as a business owner by managing and promoting and producing and presenting ECW as a grooming period to taking over WWE. So at the end of 2005, Shane has a concept of making ECW a digital program, an internet exclusive, keeping it low budget, in-house, with the right talent, some of the original guys, a lot of new talent. So it's an authentic presentation, updated, that could also double as a developmental system. As this concept starts to grow, WWE sends out a feeler to television networks. By the way, we're also going to launch a third brand besides Raw and SmackDown. We're going to bring back ECW based on the fact that there's still an audience that clamors for those three letters. When a network bit and said, ooh, we pay you a rights fee for ECW, and the pay-per-view distributors said, Oh, we'll carry an ECW pay-per-view. Now it became corporate.
WWE's version of ECW that was launched in 2006 sucked. It sucked from the very beginning. And when I say it sucked, I say that because it was nothing like the original ECW. So had it been called anything else, it would have been fine. It would have been a nice little wrestling show.
If WWE would have called that third brand anything but ECW, it would have had a chance to succeed. But you can't resurrect an authentic version of ECW.
You know, I look out into this crowd and I can honestly tell you from the bottom of my heart that if this is the ECW audience, I'm glad I dumped the company in 2001.
Oh, he was super frustrated. Everybody was. He was frustrated. Rob Van Dam was frustrated. Big Show was frustrated. I was frustrated. Everybody was super frustrated.
He's the idiot from Search for the Holy Grail. You know, come back here and fight. It's only a flesh wound, you know, and there's just a head sitting there. I mean, hey man, your leg's cut off. I know, but I still got one more. Let's fight. You know, that's him. He's got courage and passion more than common sense.
So here's Vince competing with me over the direction of ECW when he owns the company. So it's fait accompli. There's no way it's gonna work. And it's just gonna lead to a fallout. It's just gonna lead to everybody having hard feelings, which is exactly what happened.
I look at WWE's ECW as a divorce, and someone got remarried and they have now the child known as ECW. And it's the father of ECW having to watch ECW raised by the stepfather. And hey, that's not what's good for my son. Well, your son now lives with me, and this is how it's gonna be.
Vince and Paul didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and it's just unfortunate for really all of us.
We talked all the time, and he would tell me, like, they brought up 10 things at the meeting. I can get 7 of them shot down. There's 3 things that we're fighting on, you know, and that's how it was, like, all the time.
I think at the end of the day, Paul couldn't swallow that he wasn't the boss, and he didn't know how to work with somebody who was the boss, and who didn't just take all of his ideas and agree with them.
He's amazing creative. You give him no guidelines, just tell him, go out there and create. You'll have genius.
And then he started getting in the talent's ear and pulling people aside, and we couldn't find them. And then when we did, they were off in the corner, and then you get Paul's eyes, like looking at someone, like it just was a distrustful situation. If you can't trust someone, you can't be in business with them. It just doesn't work.
The day that Vince and I had our blowout, you would never have expected me back in this company. No way. No way. It was so bad. It was so miserable. It was so many years of aggravation. I mean, just the conflict that we had on his plane alone, one would think I would never be back. I think it's a testament to Vince that I'm back here, because clearly I was flipped out. I wanted to go. I wanted out of here. And when it all came to a head, it was not pretty. I just started doing a lot of things I was passionate about. I tried to buy the Strikeforce MMA promotion, which would have included the MMA career of Brock Lesnar. I dabbled in a bunch of other things. I wrote a book with Brock Lesnar. And so in between all those other projects, I started a digital series called The Heyman Hustle.
The Heyman Hustle! In 2006, when Paul left the WWE, it was really when we cemented our relationship. He would come to my home to work almost every night at 11 o'clock at night. Yes, we keep, like, vampire hours, but those are the creative hours. We created the Heyman Hustle in that period. And Heyman Hustle started as an online television program.
I've had bosses that try to sleep with me, just
And
not
even
him.
successful at it?
Absolutely not.
Because we're hiring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, You both hate Kendra, right? Stop staring. Stop staring. I'm sorry. Am I in your way?
I'm Ramon.
Are you here for Playboy?
Yes, I am.
And it was amazingly creative. You know, it was just two guys riffing, basically, me behind the camera, Paul in front of the camera. Actually, that was the foundation of Looking for Larry, because we said we could do this, and imagine if we have a plan.
Hello. How are you? We're still in business today? We're doing better than I thought. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry I'm late, as always.
We're playing a home game today, I see.
What's that? How are you? Good. How are you?
Welcome to the Bat Cave of Looking for Larry. We are a full-service branding, advertising, and content creation company. Paul Heyman's been my partner for about 14 years, and it becomes like the wrestler and the rock guy. It's the same thing all the time. It's about brand storytelling, and there's pretty much no one better at it than Paul. Looking for Larry, because of Paul's background, is asked to do a lot of male-centric stuff. So we do a lot of very big video games. We went out and shot the digital commercial featuring the Ultimate Warrior for 2K WWE 14. And it was an absolute hit.
Pre-order now!
So one might think, with Paul being on the road 4 days a week, being a completely devoted dad, he'd have less time for Looking for Larry and the work we do. Thank God, God invented the internet, and it hasn't changed at all.
I can be in Johannesburg, and I can sit there and I can arrange a multimedia global digital campaign from my phone, even the cracked one. And at the same time, I'm getting on a plane going to Seoul, South Korea, and I can sit here on this phone and I can arrange a print campaign. And I can go back and forth on each phone and I can arrange all these different things. Doesn't matter where you are. You're always at your desk. And I prefer it that way. It's far more kinetic, it's far more exhilarating for me.
We are the social media badasses. We love to go up against any company anywhere in the world. And our advantage is Paul's been a promotion guy since he's been like 11, and I've been since I'm 17.
It's a constant theory of brainstorming and then taking the ideas that either one of us has and mainstreaming it so that it also can go viral to the point where it hits the biggest market imaginable, but it's an uninhibited, free-form creative expression for the both of us. And if you don't have that synergy, it's never going to work.
You've never met a guy that cares so much about the people he works with. So we have a guy, Michael 24/7, who I've never met, lives in South Carolina. And Michael was, at the time Paul met him, very young and going a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and Paul just saw his talent. And Paul refused. I was getting rid of him. Paul refused to ever give up on that guy, and Paul was right. He gave him 2-3 years to figure it out. And, you know, if you're asking why do people drink the Paul Heyman Kool-Aid, is because if you look to the right of you, he's in the foxhole with you, and he'll never give up on you if he believes in you. And that's really the trick. He's not asking anyone to do anything. He does it for them, so of course the right person will jump right in the foxhole with Paul.
You know, you asked Paul what he was doing when he wasn't doing anything in wrestling, and you know, oh, I have meetings, and I have this, and I have that, and that's Paul, and I don't doubt he had meetings, and he was super busy. You know, he's got 2 beautiful little kids, and he was raising those kids.
Everything he does in his life, here, WWE, all the hours on the road, all the miles he's logged, is all for them. That's the beginning and middle and end of Paul Heyman. That's the secret sauce.
Now that he has kids, I think he appreciates what matters most.
Paul becoming a father has changed him. He seems much more laid back. He seems to understand that his beautiful children are more important than his career.
My children are my salvation. They're my redemption. They're my absolution. They're my breath. They're everything to me, and it's an outlet for my passion. I will probably come across to a lot of people as a rather intense individual. So, you know, and somebody like that needs an outlet for for anything that he does. I don't do anything half-ass, so I don't parent half-ass either. I am not only the schmuck son of two extraordinary parents, I'm the conduit to the next generation, because my children are far more extraordinary than I will ever hope to be.
That definitely became his priority, and he took some time to put his energy there, and now he's good at balancing everything so that he can get the most out of both worlds. And he's on the road again with WWE, and he's also a great dad to them.
I did a lot of work with Brock in UFC, and I was building the Looking for Larry agency with my partner, Mitchell Stewart. And Brock's UFC career ended, and he decided to take WWE up on the offer of returning. And I wanted no part of it. I was never coming back to WWE. I never wanted to go back on the air. I was very happy building my own agency. And I just felt, man, there's just too much baggage involved. And the question was asked, how'd you like to come back? Water under the bridge. Start with a clean slate and put you and Brock Lesnar back together on television again. I love working with Brock.
Oh my God. That man is the man who represents Brock Lesnar's career. Many of you know him. That is Paul Heyman, ladies and gentlemen.
There's only one word to describe Paul Heyman. Disgusting. The guy is disgusting.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman.
I think I'm a far better performer for the 5.5 years that I was out of WWE than had I stayed in WWE. And I was miserable at the time. I needed to go do something else. I had spent my entire adult life in this industry. I needed to find something else to do. And in doing so, I learned other ways of approaching not only business, but performance as well.
When he was here in 2006, he was office, pretty much. He had a television show to write. He had talent to take care of, and he was sitting in on meetings and stuff like that. And now he's strictly on-air talent. That goes a long way to making him a little bit more stress-free. He's still performing at the highest level, and he's better than he ever has been. I think he looks at himself as being very fortunate to be here.
I'm having a blast right now, and my children are old enough to enjoy it with me.
Paul has grown up so much since he left the business. He looked at the whole world differently.
I don't harbor any hatred or angst towards Paul because my life is different. For a long time I did, and I saw like how lies destroyed people and destroyed their lives. My saving grace with Paul was actually watching Monday Night Raw when he was getting his job evaluated by Vince McMahon.
I have lied every day of my stinking life because I am a promoter. And that's what promoters do. We lie to survive tonight, simply to get till tomorrow. Whatever answer I've had to give in my life to survive on that particular evening, just so I could wake up the next day alive and with a business or with a career or with a job, I have lied through my teeth. I have lied swearing to God. I have lied on the souls of my parents, and I have lied, and I don't regret it because that's what it took for me to survive.
And I honestly, truly, I got it.
Paul's at a really great place now in his life, or so it seems. And he's contributing in a wonderful way. And I think the audience is really enjoying it and benefiting from it.
Paul Heyman thrives for situations like this.
Sick smile on the face of the walrus.
The mastermind behind the conquering of the streak and the rise of the King of Swing, Paul Heyman.
I'm the one behind the one in 21-1.
We've seen in the last few years how imperative it has been for WWE to have Paul Heyman on television. He's arguably the best orator, has the best verbal skills of anybody in the business, period.
Everything that I've ever done in my entire life, I've done with great passion.
I notice a big difference in Paul. I notice a much more intelligent Paul Heyman and a much more confident Paul Heyman.
I wouldn't be here right now if I wasn't working with Paul Heyman. And if you really think about it, since he came back, I've been working with him almost nonstop.
I'm here tonight to pay homage to a man that he pontificates himself to be a Paul Heyman God.
So I'm super fortunate in that regard. You know, I get to come to work and I get to work with one of my best friends.
You're way too important to me. You're way too important to this company as a whole. Listen to these people. There's a lot of Paul Heyman guys out there.
I've seen Paul with a lot of the younger superstars. I do think that he tries to mentor as much as he possibly can. Paul loves our business, and he loves to contribute.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of talent. I get to work with some extraordinarily talented people whose talent is usually taken for granted by themselves.
I go to Paul all the time for advice, and even advice that's not necessarily inside the ring or on WWE TV. I go to him, you know, as if he was an uncle. Paul will always tell me the truth, and I love that because your friends will tell you the truth. Your enemies will tell you what you want to hear so that, you know, you don't ever succeed. But Paul will tell me if something is good, if something is worth suggesting, and if something needs to just be scrapped. And I love that. He will always tell me the truth.
He thinks on another level than most. He can make you believe in something. That's his gift to the world, is how Paul is able to just mentally penetrate. He just has a gift for that.
I think anyone can learn everything from Paul Heyman. He takes things into this whole other level, and they're so layered that I like to just listen to him and react to exactly what he's saying, because Lord knows what is going to come out of his mouth.
CM Punk wants to take me down, take me out, drive me away from WWE forever. But just like when a volcano is trapped inside of a dormant mountain, when that volcano finally erupts and the lava, the melted lava, drips down the side of the mountain, I'm just like that lava. I'm red hot, and I'm out of control. And all the villagers with the lava pouring down into their houses, destroying their cars, suffocating and melting their flesh. And the villagers are going, wouldn't be lies, wouldn't be lies, wouldn't be lies. They're the ones that love and worship CM Punk, and I'm the one that has a different strategy. Because I'm not all filled with emotion like CM Punk, Renee. I'm cold-hearted, and I'm calculated, and I'm in control.
I've definitely been able to learn to be able to trust another performer the way that I can do that with Paul.
I can learn more from Renee Young by teaching her than just sitting there and saying, thank you for the interview. It was a pleasure to work with you. Because any piece of advice that I give her from my experience, there's going to be a give back from her youth and her perspective and what people have taught her. Experience is the greatest inhibitor of creativity and innovation because you learn from experience what not to do. But it's the unbridled passion and the fearlessness to just go into something with reckless abandon that allows you to create something from nothing, that allows you to innovate, that allows you, if you'll excuse the phrase, to take things to the extreme. So I get to work with a locker room full of young talent with unbridled passion that don't have the decades of experience that teaches them what not to do. And I get to learn from them, and I get to feed off of their passion, and I get to feed off of their enthusiasm. Who's the lucky one here? I got to work with Steve Austin at a very young age. I got to work with Mick Foley at a young age. I got to work with CM Punk at a young age. We have a locker room full of people who have the same talent, the same ability to carry an industry into the next generation. They keep me ambitious, and they remind me on a daily basis of what I love about this business, what makes this industry so personal, and what makes me so blessed on a daily basis to come to work with a bunch of people far more talented than I had ever hoped to be.
Without a doubt, this person is one of the most ingenious, creative, and manipulative minds in the history of this business. Paul Heyman!
I'm thrilled by Paul's chameleon-like ability to generate heat with a new generation of fans.
I honestly think that Paul Heyman just tried to upstage the Pope.
He changes so gradually that you never see a seismic shift in Paul Heyman, but he is nothing like the Paul Heyman who first came on the scene.
It's a man of a few thousand well-chosen words.
He's nothing like the Paul Heyman in WCW.
The yuppie gone bad from Wall Street.
He's nothing like the Paul Heyman I saw in ECW.
We're gonna break every effing rule in the business!
Or even in his first WWE run.
Disingenuous slime bag.
He has an ability to change courses before anyone realizes the courses need to be changed. He's always one step ahead of the curve, and he's a master at it.
He could be the greatest manager of all time. Paul Heyman had 3 straight world champions as his client. The only person to ever do that.
Paul Heyman, in my opinion, is the greatest manager in the history of our business. Because Paul changed his character with the times for over 20 years and still manages to get booed out of every arena he is.
The person you love to hate, Mr. Paul E. Dangerously.
One of the greatest bad guys in our business.
It's been one hell of a ride.
Some people refer to Paul Heyman as a genius. I'm not sure if the man is a genius, but there is genius in his thinking. He absolutely lived his dream.
Paul was born to do wrestling. God put Paul Heyman on this earth for this purpose.
I see him backstage at WWE shows, and it's the same Paul Heyman. That glow in his eyes is still there. It's been there since he was a teenager from shooting pictures, and it's still there in the WWE. He can't wait to get out there. He has that passion.
He showed me a picture of him and Bruno Sammartino, and he was interviewing Bruno. He was 14 years old, and he has this big grin on his face. And it's the same exact grin that I saw last night after we got done performing in Providence, Rhode Island. Same grin. That 14-year-old kid is still there.
I think the impact overall that his mom had on him is to appreciate and embrace every moment. So when they talk about like, Paul will die on the hill for his idea, it's just, he's just that alive. And he cares that much.
A guy that really cared. A guy that, for no motivation, no reason other than to help the business and talent, helped a lot of people along the way.
He brought out the best in so many of the people who crossed his path, and so many people were better off for having known him.
I've had the time of my life professionally. But the definition of me as a man will be my children. The measure of this man is going to be what happens to Azalea and Jacob Heyman. That's the measure of this man. That's who I am. Everything else is what I had fun doing. You know, it's they're my legacy.